Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the OakBridge I Aspire video series. A bit about me. I'm Vikesh Dhani. I'm one of the co-founders and directors at OakBridge Publishing. OakBridge Publishing is a specialist publisher of books meant for civil services exam aspirants, other than law and tax. And we've been in business for slightly over than 6 years now. We have a fantastic set of authors, including Professor Raja Gopalan, Ghazal Bharadwaj, Naveen Chandra, Somesh Upadhyay, Lohit Matani, several other stalwart authors, especially in the IAS aspirants exam segment. This new video series, OakBridge I Aspire, is an initiative to benefit students at large, the exam aspirants at large, where we are going to interview some of our finest authors, scholars, and other subject matter experts to seek their insights and their guidance in terms of how students can prepare better and more confidently for one of these highly competitive examinations. With that, I would like to now invite Mr. Naveen Chandra. Mr. Naveen Chandra, who's our author for the latest book on social justice. So this has been authored by Mr. Naveen Chandra. He's an avid reader. He's an IAS officer and a prolific writer. Having graduated from IIT Roorkee, he is currently working as an IAS officer in the state of West Bengal. Naveen ji is very interested in subjects and topics such as economics, philosophy, psychology, physics, astronomy, music, and art. Very, very diversified set of interests. And he also loves to paint and sketch. He writes on a variety of issues and topics and has published several books. He has a blog which he has been writing for over 10 years now. And we keenly look forward to learning more about him during the course of this interview today. This interview, for the benefit of our readers, is divided into three different parts. Part one is where Naveen ji, will be asked questions around the exam aspirants' requirements, especially when the exams are very close, about strategies, about ways to manage their studies, their planning, on all the challenges that they face. Part two will be focusing more about Naveen Chandraji's experiences as an IAS officer, experiences that he has gained on job, the things that he likes, things where he think, others can benefit and learn from his wisdom. And part three is going to be an interesting rapid fire round with a lot of fun and witty questions and answers. So with that, we begin the part one. So, Naveen ji, welcome to OakBridge I Aspire video series.
Thank you so much, KSG, for having me. I look forward to having a very interesting and exciting session of interviews today. And I hope it will help a lot of aspirants. And I look forward to talking about a new book. And I hope that book goes on to, help a lot of students as well.
Excellent.
I'm very excited. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naveen ji. Okay, Naveen ji. So the first question, we understand, this is the exam time, only about a month is left for the mains. Typically, what goes in the mind of a UPSC aspirant when exams are so close? What advice would you like to give the aspirants during this time? How should the aspirants plan their study in the last leg, last phase?
Okay, so a very good question. Actually, UPSC Civil Services exam is unique in the sense that it is stretched out to almost a year. As in anyone who is preparing for the exam, also I'll assume most of the times will be preparing for 8-10 months. So when you have given your pre and you're waiting for mains, or perhaps even when you're waiting for your pre in the last month, you have already been studying for 8-9 months. So it's not like you're just starting out. It's not like a college exam that you can, prepare on the last day and you can clear. As far as that thing is concerned, being nervous, being worried is natural before any exam, but also students and aspirants must remember that they have already worked a lot. They worked hard for 8-9 months. It's not like they are just starting. The natural level of nervousness is okay, but then they should also feel confident about their preparation because they have been working hard. So that is how I used to tell myself that, okay, you are nervous, that is fine, but then you have also studied for 8-9 months. It's not like you're starting right now. So that level of nervousness will always be there anyway. My advice would be that in the last month, your focus should shift completely to revision and solving question papers, be it pre or mains. If you're writing mains, your focus should be on revision and answer writing practice and mock paper practice. If you're writing pre, your focus should be on solving as many mock papers as possible and revising. You don't need to read anything new because by the time, like I said, in 8-9 months, you've already covered 80-90% of the syllabus. So that fresh 10% is not going to give you that much of an advantage. Rather, if you revise at 80-90% more, it'll add to your chances a lot more. That is my advice.
Excellent. So very well said, Naveen ji. Like you said, most of them would have already been through the vast syllabus and the focus on revision and practice is what's going to make a difference in the last leg. With that, we move on to the next question. What kind of academic and behavioral skills are required to crack civil services exam? This is slightly broader. How can a student identify his or her strengths and weaknesses and work on them accordingly?
So as far as what kind of an academic background or behavioral traits are required, in that sense, civil services is a great leveler. As in the exam is a great leveler. It does not require you to be a scientist or an engineer or a humanities student or a law student or a CA. Everyone has an equal chance and everyone has an equal opportunity because all the subjects are almost equally represented in the syllabus itself. Perhaps people coming from one particular background might have an advantage in one exam, but then some other person will have an advantage in some other leg of the exam. So it is a great leveler in that sense. So you don't need to have a particular academic background as such. As far as your academic background in the sense that how well you have done academically, if that is concerned, I personally know people who even failed in their 11th and 12th, but they went on to clear the exam later on. So there are many such examples that even if you have not done academically well before, that does not mean it's a fresh start actually. If you're not happy or satisfied with your past performances, you can just put them behind, leave them behind, and this exam will actually give you an opportunity where you can still succeed and still like they say, make it to the list. So that ways there is no advantage or disadvantage for anyone coming from any background as such for this exam. It's a fresh start, it's a clean slate, and you just have to work on what the exam requires and you stand an equal chance. As far as behavioral traits are concerned, for that I would suggest, I have personally, what I have seen, I have been in service for 5 years now, and before that I was in IRPS for 1 year as in training. So 6 years I've been in civil services. What I have seen sought after or important trait or quality that we would like to see in an aspirant would be that they have patience. Because this exam, like I said, is not going to get over in a day. Most of the exams are one day affair. You just give the exam and then you wait for the results. In this, you give pre and then you wait, and you give mains, which goes on for 10 days, and then you again wait. And then you have your interview, and you can reach your interview and still not get selected. So it's a huge test of the character of the person. So for that, if you have patience and if you can, tell yourself that, okay, I have to just continue working without thinking much about the results and much about the outcome, you will perhaps do much better than most of the aspirants, because people expect overnight results, and that is where they start, for me, for example, I was an IIT graduate. I have never studied humanities in my life. So if I'm going to study political science and history, I cannot expect to understand all of political science overnight. And if I'm not performing well, I should not be discouraged, because I should also be kind to myself and knowing that, okay, this is something completely new. This is not that you have read ever. So give it some time. Also respect those people who have been studying for this for their life. You're competing with them. Obviously, they will do better than you. So it's okay if you're not doing that well in the initial stage. So if someone can be that patient with themselves, then I guess they have a great chance. You have to be patient and you have to just continue working. You will see that it's just like compound interest. Initially you'll not see anything, but then eventually down the line you will see results.
Excellent. I think very well said. Having a positive frame of mind, a confident view, focusing only on the goal, not being, swayed, not trying to compare oneself with others. Excellent, thoughts there, Naveen. Moving on to the next question. Are there any special study or techniques or learning techniques for reading and revising quickly? Because as we all know, in the last phase, it's largely about revision and practice. What tips would you give to aspirants to be able to identify and revise the important topics quickly and repeatedly?
Right. So for revision and practice, the first and perhaps the most important thing that I tell everyone whoever asks me is that you have to make your own notes. Because when you read a book, it's natural that a book will cover a lot more and it will go in deeper directions, and perhaps it will cover, at times it will cover things which are not exactly to your requirements. But then to do justice to a topic, the writer will add it, because he will want to cover the topic in its entirety. So it is always better that you make your own notes of all the subjects and make them in a way that they are very precise and concise. They must be only consisting of keywords, and if at all required, maybe 1 or 2 lines here and there. But your notes should be made in a way that you can revise entire subjects in one sitting. So if you do that, if you make your notes very concisely and precisely, and your half of your work is done. Because one thing that everyone has to remember, that revision is not going to be done through books. Books are to be read once or twice, maybe consulted again if you feel stuck and you feel that you don't understand the concept anymore. Maybe you can revisit them. but books are there to guide you, and then after that you have to revise to your own notes. So that is something which I see a lot of people not doing. They'll read a book and they'll underline the book itself, and then they revise through the book. Then what happens? Then when you revise through the book, you tend to digress and you tend to read everything else also, which is not underlined, because everything is important. That's why it's in the book. So let's face it, no, nothing that is not important will not be in the book. Then but you have to use your own, brain and understand that, okay, this is something which can suffice for this topic, and add that to your note. And that one thing should let you recall everything else. That's how keywords work. Like if I write social justice, I take a topic in social justice, and if I write everything, then I'll end up writing my own book. So that is of no use. You already have a book. You don't need another book. You make your notes in a way that it consists of keywords only, so that that keyword can strike in your mind, and you're like, okay, now I remember everything else also. That's how you revise. And that's how you can, be ready to revise a lot many times if you have your own notes and they are just this one thing can actually be enough for, solving most of the problems related to, revision and revising multiple times.
I think excellent advice, Naveenji. It's very crucial that the crux of what they've been reading should come, in their notes.
Yes.
Because in the last leg, in the last phase, there's not going to be enough time. They need to be able to visualize this early on. And accordingly, the note should be prepared. Very well said. All right. So we move to the next question. How should an aspirant split his time across the 9 papers? So there are these total, 9 papers broadly. Is there a model timetable or plan that a student can adapt and use to prepare for the exam confidently?
Absolutely, there is. It can vary from person to person. It can vary in the sense that if someone might have some different interests, it might to incorporate in their timetable. But as far as I am concerned, the way I made my timetable, and I made it for like around 5.5 months when I was studying for my first attempt. So an ideal timetable should be divided into 6 or 7 slots of 1.5 hours or 1 hour 20 minutes each. Not more than that, because we just cannot concentrate more than that continuously, and after that it's more of a waste of time and energy. So even 1 hour also, if someone wants, but then number of sessions will increase. So the things that they have to understand and they have to do on a daily basis, which is required to be there in the timetable, is that you must be studying your optional daily. You must be studying 2 GS subjects daily. You must be revising one portion of GS or optional depending on what you are revising that day, but there must be a slot for revision. There must be a slot for solving questions, both mains and pre. You can give 1 hour, half an hour for mains, half an hour for pre, depends on. And there must be one session completely dedicated to current. So you are studying your optional daily for 1 hour. You are studying 2 GS subjects for 1 hour each. That is 3 hours. You're giving 1 hour for your answer writing and mock practice. That is 1 hour. That is total 4 hours. Then you are giving 1 hour for your current affairs, 5 hours. And you are giving 1 hour for your revision. That is 6 hours. And like I said, 6 hours, if you feel is too less and you still have the energy to go again, you can give another hour to the GS subjects. But these 5 or 6 things have to be done on a daily basis. Because when you do these 6 things on a daily basis, not only do you complete your syllabus on time, you are also doing revision regularly, you are writing answers regularly, you are solving mocks regularly. So you are already in that phase where you are practicing and you are revising from day one. So if you have these 5-6 components, your timetable is pretty much sorted. You don't have to worry about if I'll be able to complete my syllabus on time, if I'll be able to revise enough, or if I'll be able to solve enough questions. Apart from these 6 things, a few things which I will add is that you must add half an hour at least for your workout or some form of physical exercise, because I am not just preaching it. I used to do it. I used to wake up and go to the gym first thing in the day, and the rest of the things used to follow. So that is very necessary. It is very easy to forget that this preparation will take you 6-7 months, and 6-7-8 months. If you just sit in the chair, you will not only gain weight, but it is quite possible that you will develop some or the other issue. So it is advisable that you keep on moving and you do some form of physical exercise. And if you are into any other thing like reading or perhaps writing or painting or sketching, you can give another half an hour for that activity, because some diversion and some form of refreshment is necessary. Apart from these things, one thing which I will again tell, that there is a myth, and to be honest, most of the officers have been involved in spreading that myth unknowingly. I was also. So I apologize for that. But that myth is that you perhaps don't need people, and you perhaps need to disconnect from everyone for this preparation. But that is not true. Please don't do that. You need your family. You try to have as many meals as possible with them if you are staying at home, and talk to them regularly on a regular basis if you are staying out. preferably at least once a day, because that will keep you sane. Social connections are very necessary. We are all social animals, so it is important to not getting just completely disconnected and from the society. It is important to have one or two good friends to talk to, and if you don't have friends, your family is there, talk to them. But if you do all these things on a daily basis, you will still have time to sleep for 7-8 hours, and you still have time to do any other thing if you want to do. But these things on a daily basis, and not more than 5 months will be required for you to complete the preparation, and a preparation that will be good.
Excellent. I think this is fantastic advice, Naveenji. And I also think, as you mentioned, that they need to be doing different things simultaneously. So on one hand, they are, doing detailed subject study. On the other hand, they are also doing answer writing. They are also keeping themselves updated with current affairs. You are also suggesting them to socialize a bit with their family, keep their mind relaxed, work out, so that there is a balance and there is no monotony that sets in. So fantastic. I think this is a really good piece of advice, and I'm sure our viewers would really benefit a lot from this. Next question. How should the aspirants prepare for GS1 to GS4 for the mains, considering the vast range of syllabi across these?
So, if you look at the syllabus, you'll see that syllabus as such for pre and mains is not different. As in the subject-wise syllabus is not different as such. Most of the things, they are same. The only thing which changes is that mains is a subjective paper and prelims is objective in nature and MCQ based. So when anyone is preparing for GS paper 1 to GS paper 4, apart from 4, which is ethics, which is only in mains, and that is only mains specific. Right. So when you're preparing for GS paper 1 to paper 3, you should be preparing in a way that you are not focusing only on pre or only on mains. It should be a combined preparation, in the sense that when you finish a topic, say you studied economics and you're studying macroeconomics and you're studying banking sector, whatever. So when you studied it, your preparation should be wholesome in a way that you are able to solve MCQs also, and you are also able to write a subjective answer on it. So your preparation should be done in that way only. So that's why I always suggest students is that when you're studying a subject or studying a topic, please ensure that after that topic you write 1 or 2 answers on it, and you also solve 5 or 7 MCQs on the same topic, and only then you can consider yourself your study of that particular topic to be over. Because if you have not done these 2 exercises, you don't know if you actually understood it. I only know I understood something if I am able to answer questions on that topic. Apart from that, my own understanding might be wrong also. So if I am able to answer questions on that topic, both pre and mains, then I know, okay, this topic is done for good, and I can move on to another topic. So any topic that you pick from GS1 and GS till GS paper 3, just see first of all that if it is a unique topic, that if it is only in pre and only in mains, if it is not, if it is in both the papers, ensure that after reading it, you solve MCQs and as well as you write answers. This way, your preparation for your pre and mains will go simultaneously and will go hand in hand, and you don't have to worry about, okay, I've done pre, I have to do mains also. And if a topic is only there in mains, I would suggest do it later. First, cover the common topics, so that it will give you an added advantage, psychologically, that that, okay, I'm not just studying for pre. Because a lot of it is psychological. A lot of preparation is psychological. You have to have confidence in your preparation and in yourself. And these small things, reaffirm that belief that, okay, my preparation is on the right track. So when you cover topics which are in both the papers, you tell yourself that, okay, I have covered these topics. See, small things about this exam makes a difference. Like I used to have printouts of both mains and prelims syllabuses on my table all the time. And when I'm reading a topic, I will ensure that I put a tick in front of it, because that small tick will give me a confidence that, okay, I've done another topic, and both from pre and mains, and then I'll move on. So if you do these small things, your pre and mains GS paper will be easily covered, because syllabus wise, like I said, there is no such thing as pre and mains. For 90% of the topics, there is no such thing as pre and mains. There is just GS syllabus. Right. So, but in your mind, there is pre and mains. So how do you actually deal with that, reality, and ensure that, okay, if it is pre and mains, I have to study it in a way that it is pre and mains, but actually you're studying only once. So that's how you study only once, but you solve MCQs and you write answers. So you will, tell your brain that, okay, you have actually done 2 exercises, but in fact, you're doing it only once. So this way, your preparation for both pre and mains will be on track.
This is a very important point that you made, Naveenji. I think it's a fantastic, point. The preparation cannot be compartmentalized, and should be viewed as a holistic preparation right from the beginning, right from the time you are thinking of preparing for the exam till the final exam, and preparing accordingly. So, focusing on maximizing knowledge on the subject without worrying too much whether it is only for prelims or for mains.
Yes.
And trying to meet the requirements of both the exams simultaneously. The next question, what advice would you give to aspirants for answer writing? So answer writing, makes a huge difference as we have seen. How can the aspirants make their answers clear, meaningful, and impactful?
So answer writing, like you rightly said, makes a huge difference, and it is perhaps the toughest part of the entire preparation. And reasons vary. A lot of us, most of us, are actually not gifted writers in the sense that we don't write regularly and we don't write, on as varied as issues as UPSC syllabus has. So the best thing which any aspirant can do, which I also did, and which helped me tremendously, was that you start answer writing practice as early as possible. A lot of people say that how will I start answer writing if I have not read enough? From where will I get content? So there are a lot of resources available whereby you will find questions to be divided topic wise. So you have topic wise questions. So you just solve those questions or write those questions with which you already read. Like if I've read just economics and I've just read first 2-3 chapters, I will be able to find questions which are only on those 2-3 chapters.
Right.
You write them first. And what happens is, because answer writing is not just about writing answers and being done with it. It is a lot more. It is not just about quality. It is also about word limit. It is also about handwriting. It is also about incorporating various other things like flowcharts, diagrams. And it is also about underlining the keywords. There's so many things. So
Right.
the later you start, it will take you that much more amount of time. It is even possible that by the time you actually write mains, you are not ready. Perhaps you're not finishing answer in time. So that way you will perhaps not be able to even finish the paper.
Right.
And when you are not able to finish the paper, you are out there and then, because that is the first requirement. Because not even a single candidate I know of personally has ever told me that I was not able to finish the paper. So word limit and writing the exam in time is the first thing. But how will you do it? Because when you start writing it, you write one answer in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But if you look at the paper, you should be writing it in 7 to 8 minutes.
Right.
Only then will you be able to finish it in time, and that too in exact time. So ideally you should be writing it in 6 minutes or 7 minutes, so that you still have some time to go through it and underline it or do something else if you wish. So how do you get from 20 minutes to 6 minutes? You need a lot of practice. And how do you get a lot of practice? You have to start as early as possible. So for this, that's why I always suggest that you get one of these resources where you have questions which are divided topic wise for all the subjects. You read a topic, you solve those questions, and you move ahead. This way, first of all, you are not just writing answer, you are also revising a topic which you have just read. You're writing it again, and written word will stay in your mind for a much longer time than a read word, the word that you have just read. So it serves multiple purposes. So that is one thing. Second thing is, most of the answers from GS or optional or whatever, most of the questions have already been asked.
Right.
By UPSC. UPSC exam is a very old exam. So apart from exactly, as in something which is absolutely correct, most of the things have already been asked. So you will find sample answers written by previous selected candidates and toppers and all on internet. They're freely available. So when you write an answer, I would suggest just try and Google a sample answer on a similar question or a similar topic and try and compare. Right. And see what are the places or what are the things that you are not doing or where you are perhaps lacking. And you work on it on the next question. So that is how you will improve, and that is how you will take your answer to that next level. Because a lot of people will have content, but they will perhaps not know how to present it. They will perhaps not know what is important, what is not important, which point should come first. They might be able to do it, but then they might be lacking in the body and the introduction or the conclusion. Some or the other issue might be there. But how do you deal with it? You take help of these sample answers, and you don't need to join a test series from day one. You can do that much later, like after 4-5 months, you can do that. But answer writing practice should begin much earlier.
Excellent. A friend had some time back told me who was preparing for a different exam, but he mentioned that when he found that there is limited time and you have to cover a lot of information. So it's like the speed of answer writing and quality of answer writing both need to be balanced very well because both matter. And one of the suggestions that he gave me was that, he takes half a minute to 1 minute to frame the answer. So what is he going to write in the introduction? What is he going to write in the, body? what is he going to write in the conclusion? So, the main points, he quickly scribbles them. And then all he has to do is just recollect his thoughts and, create that answer based on the framework that he has quickly created. So I think what you mentioned, makes perfect sense because the exam is so highly competitive. One cannot afford to not answer completely or adequately, in the exam. And hence the need to practice really hard, build speed, and also build the quality of thought, quality of answers. Wonderful. So we now move on to the next question. This is more of a generic question. What are some of the most important do's and don'ts that students need to be aware of and should practice diligently?
So the do's, I think it will be a bit more a bit repetitive, but then I think it is important. The do's will be that when you are studying for UPSC or perhaps even other exams, you have to understand that, like I said, you're not going to see results overnight, and things will not, start happening overnight, and you will not be. So if I am writing an answer today, and it will not be a perfect answer. So you don't have to get disheartened if you see a sample answer of a topper who perhaps has been giving this exam for 3 years, 4 years, and you compare it with your answer. You don't need to get disheartened. You need to actually take some inspiration and work on it and improve it and move. Second thing is, like you also said, and I'll repeat it, that the syllabus of the exam is so huge. It is very important that you start revising as soon as possible. You just cannot wait for your syllabus to get over and then you will start revising, because by the time the syllabus gets over, you already would have forgotten half of it. Right. If you haven't done revision. So it is important that every second or third day you revise what you have read earlier, some portion of it, if not entirety, some portion. So you are regularly revising some of the other topics. So what will happen that by the time you are done with your syllabus for the first time, you have also done with 50 or 60% revision for the first time. So it's not like your entire syllabus is waiting for you to be, revised at that point of time. So that is very important that you, revise topics as soon as possible. Another very important do, which again I just mentioned, is answer writing practice. You just cannot wait for your syllabus to get over and you to have enough content to write answers, because it's like I said, it's just not about. There's so many other things that go into making a good answer. If you are not able to frame an answer, if you're not able to know that, okay, introduction, what should be an introduction, what a good conclusion looks like, and all these things, because most of these things are generic, they'll be the same in all the questions. A good conclusion will almost remain in the same, except for, the particular topic that it deals with, but it'll look like, it almost look same in most of the questions. So you have to develop that thing, but that'll take time. So it's better to start writing practice as soon as possible. Another important do that I will tell you in today's day and age, which is very important, that perhaps you don't need that much amount of social media, in the sense that I can understand that I am too old to now even talk about it, that perhaps it is so big an important part of their lives now, that it is just like perhaps TV 10 years back or 20 years back. So I can understand it, but the issue with social media is that there is so much content available. You go there for 5 minutes and you don't know, and you've already spent an hour there, and it's that. So if you actually are on social media and other platforms, it's not an issue, but try to use it as a reward mechanism. Like when you meet your targets, then you reward yourself when you go on whatever social media you want to do, and perhaps that will also work as a motivation for you to study. Because I turn it into a motivation rather than a hindrance. So because a lot of people I know who are preparing, they waste a lot of time on social media, and it is almost an addiction these days. So I would suggest that when you're starting your preparation seriously, try to limit yourself to 2 or 3 of these platforms, not more than that, and that to try to use them as a reward mechanism for your studies. You go there when you're done with your topic, and then take a break and you can go there, but not in the middle of while you're studying. At that point of time, you can just put your phone on airplane mode and you study, something like that. So that is also something which I would suggest very strongly, because studies are anyway going to happen through books. They're not going to happen through these platforms. I mean, YouTube videos are good, but they can only supplement. They cannot replace books. So you have to study through books only. So when you're going to study through books, better to just avoid that social media, that lure for some moment. That is a set of do's, and don'ts that I would suggest is that please don't compare yourself with other aspirants, because most of the other not even most, all of the other aspirants are just like you. No one is super special, super intelligent, super genius, and no one is going to tell you something which will, get you selected or something like that. So don't change your strategies, your timetables, your resources just because someone else told you that, okay, I am studying this and why are you not studying this or something like that. Don't fall into that trap. If you are taking a coaching, if you are going somewhere to study or something like that, please focus on that thing only. You're not there to make a lot of friends. You're not there to, socialize after the classes or before the classes. Just attend the classes and sit on the first bench, listen what is being said, write down and come back and revise. I already said that socialization is important, having friends is important, but also you also have to understand that there is a thin line. You have to understand that while you're preparing for any exam, not just this exam, any exam, it is a competition at the end of the day. Someone will gain if you lose, and if you so you have to understand it. If you are going to waste undue amount of time on a daily basis, it will compound and it will cost you. So don't do that. You're going to classes or you're going somewhere to attend some classes, just do that and try to utilize as much amount of time as possible by doing something related to the exam, because that will give you a very good psychological boost. Like if you're traveling and if you have a commute of 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you can listen to perhaps news, or you can watch a video, you can do something. Like if you don't have problem anything from ebooks or something, read an ebook, read your e-notes, read a book on in a PDF format, do something which will add to your preparation, because that will give you an edge over others. Utilize as much time as possible for your preparation. That is how an aspirant's life should be for at least 5 months. It's about that much amount. I am not asking people to sacrifice everything for a year or something, but 5 months you have to make your life revolve around the preparation. In that sense, that okay, that is your priority. You're done with your daily targets, then you're free to watch 10 movies also, does not matter, but you have to be done with your daily targets first. You're done with them, then you are free to watch Netflix, you're free to go out with friends, does not matter, no one cares, because you're done with your daily targets. But if you're not done with them, then you should first try to finish them, and then you should look forward to any break or going out to party or something like that. Because like I said, it's a competition. There are people who are doing that, and you have to just ask yourself rationally that why will I get selected? So you will get the answer. So these are some certain things, very simple things which people can do and which will actually impact their preparation and how well they do.
Excellent. I think these are some fantastic insights, in terms of how to avoid distractions and, stay focused on their goal. Like you said, benchmarking your progress and your quality of answers is good, but one should not be comparing, themselves or feeling inferior compared to people whose responses, whose answers perhaps are better. At the end of the day, it's a competitive game, and they need to pull up their socks, mobilize all their resources, and stay focused on the goal. So 5-6 months of hard work, tremendous hard work, is actually not that hard also to be able to attain. So
Yes.
some great insights, Naveen ji. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question. What should aspirants do to avoid or overcome anxiety, self-doubt? Because it's quite natural that in a high pressure, highly competitive examination, people tend to develop some of these thoughts. So what can they do to stay calm and confident?
So fear of failure or anxiety or some kind of stress related to the exam and preparation, this is something which is absolutely natural. I mean, I will only laugh if someone tells me that they have never had fear of failure or they have never had self-doubt, or because then perhaps you are Lord Buddha and we are mere mortals. But for if someone has it, I think there is no need to panic first of all, because if you have fear of failure, the first thing that you need to understand is that you actually value it. Only then are you fearing failing at it. Because if I don't value it, I don't care. If I fail or pass, I don't care. But I value it. It means something to me. That's why. So that's how you look at it positive. You don't have to make it negative. That is the first thing. But the second thing that is also very important and crucial is that you have to understand why are you fearing. For me, for example, fear of failure of an exam can be because of two reasons. Number one, it's a generic fear which is there and it is omnipresent. It will always be there. And that is key. Yeah, it's such a tough competition, and so many people will give the exam. And even though I prepared well, who knows, some luck factor is also there. That fear of failure is okay, it's natural. Second fear of failure is, which is in your control and which is something you can work on. The reason is that perhaps you're not doing what you should be doing. And that fear of failure will be like, yeah, I was supposed to study 5 topics today, but I've only studied 2. I was supposed to do this, my timetables, but I have already lagging behind 5 days.
Right.
So, agar aisi chala, to perhaps I will not get it. So, this fear of failure is actually stemming from your actions.
Right.
So, this fear of failure is not something which you can just leave, and it is not something which is out of your control. It is in your control. You can actually take charge of that situation. So, what happens is when we prepare and when we set out for preparation and we see these things happening, that okay, I have missed one deadline, or perhaps I have missed my topic which I was supposed to do today, and we tell ourselves, okay, koi baat nahi, I will do it tomorrow, or perhaps I will do it on this coming Sunday or coming weekend, will make up for it. As soon as we do it, we are actually not dealing with that fear. We are letting it compound. So my advice to students is that when you start having this second kind of fear, be active, recognize it, and deal with it there and then. Like if you know that you are left with 2 topics, finish those 2 topics and move on. Right. You have dealt with your fear, and you will actually be even given a confidence boost that, okay, I was lacking somewhere, I saw it, and I actually made sure that I will deal with it. I did it. You will also read extra 2 topics. Your fear is also gone, and you also got a newfound confidence that, okay, my preparation is on track. So that fear of failure, the second fear of failure, is something which is absolutely in your control, and the only way it will not remain in your control is that if you let it just go, and you let it take its course, and you just let it compound. Because most of the people who say, for example, go to coaching centers, the one thing that they are told in coachings, and which absolutely makes sense, is that whatever we are teaching here today, you go home and you revise it and make notes. Don't let it compound. It makes sense, because that way you will revise it also, you will make notes also, and you will remain in sync with the coaching center. But many students, they miss one day, then they miss second day, they miss third day, and then suddenly they realize that, okay, they're lacking 1 month. Now, if you're lacking 1 month in a 6 months preparation, you're already out of the game. So in that situation, you have to ensure that you don't get into that situation. And most of the people can avoid it, because we start realizing it from second day onwards. That, okay, I'm already 1 day late. On the second day only, please sit for extra hours, make up for that lost 1 day, and come to terms with your preparation. And that way you will not let that fear of failure, hamper you. The sooner you realize this, your fear of failure will be gone. The first kind of fear, which is absolutely natural, which will always be there, which is there with perhaps even people who are very successful, people who are doing very well with their careers, they also have that fear of failure. After selection also, I have that fear of failure, that, okay, I am an IAS officer, but perhaps, I have to do this, and perhaps or this scheme is not done properly, or what will happen, something or the other will always remain. That fear of failure is naturally, it will be there. In whatever capacity you are working, it will be there related to your job or your preparation or anything. But the second is very, very much under your control, and you have to just ensure that, okay, you're not ignoring it, you're not living in denial. Because I know for a fact, I have given IIT and I have given UPSC 2 exams in my life, and I know in both the exams, the aspirant knows very well where he stands. Right. You cannot lie to yourself. You can lie to everyone else, but you cannot lie to yourself. You know where your preparation stands. So if you know it, then it is up to you if you decide to deal with the problems, and you deal with the gaps. If obviously there are certain things which are not under your control, like perhaps there is some family emergency or medical emergency and all of that, that is all excusable, that is all fine. You can train your brain to work in that manner, that it will excuse you for those things, because your brain will understand that, okay, this fellow otherwise is very disciplined, he works very nicely, he does whatever he is supposed to do, he has this emergency, no one can foresee an emergency, it's okay, let's excuse him, he will get back to it. But that will only happen when you have a history of achieving your targets and meeting your targets. Then only your brain will give you an excuse. Right. Otherwise, your brain will actually put you down. This is what you do all the time. You miss all your targets, and you're at it again. So that is how our brain works. So you have to train it. You have to meet your targets regularly. You meet it for 2 months, and if you miss it, if you miss some targets also, you will be excused. Your brain will excuse you. It will give you that amount of leeway. But it's very natural. It's just like a body. A brain also can be trained. Like if I go to the gym daily, my muscles, they create a memory and they respond accordingly. And like if I am, for example, doing regular 5 kg dumbbell curls, then my muscle is ready for 5 kg minimum. That is okay for it because it is used to it. And in fact, I can go higher. Same goes for our brains. Like if I train my brain by meeting all my targets regularly, and if I'm doing them on a regular basis, consistently, I'm meeting my targets, my brain is ready for even heavier targets because that much amount it can handle and I can challenge it. And at that point of time, even if I miss some targets for some emergency, some reason, my brain will excuse me. Just like my body excuses me if I am going to the gym for 3 months and 2 months or whatever, and if I miss a week for some family function or some vacation or something, my brain will excuse me, my body will excuse me because I have that much amount of work already done, and it will not, be catastrophic for me to miss a week. But that will only happen when I have put in that amount of work for the 2 months or 3 months. Same goes for our studies. If I have been studying for 3 months and if I miss a target, does not matter. My brain will excuse me and say, okay, this is a very fine guy. He meets all his targets. Let's excuse him. He will come back stronger and he will meet those targets, and it will be fine. But if I am not doing meeting my targets regularly and I miss another one, my brain will actually compound. Say that is how you always do. You always miss your targets. So it is not meant for you. And then that spiral, it becomes a spiral and you get into that place where you cannot come back. So it always starts from, the first time you miss your targets or the first time you feel that you are not doing as you're supposed to do. And we all know it. If you take control of the situation there and then, this entire fear of failure thing, where your fear stems from your inaction, will not be there. Baki, fear of failure of the fact that it is a very tough paper, it is a very tough competition and all of that will be there and it is not under your control. For that, I always tell myself that, okay, it is a very tough competition, but it is tough for everyone.
Correct.
There are so many people, but then there are so many people for everyone. So it's okay. That is not something which I am bothered about because that is something which is a a common denominator. Is there for everyone. It does not matter to me alone. It will matter to everyone, and so it's it cancels out. But my inaction will only matter to me, and that fear of failure will actually make others' chances better and my chances worse. Yeah.
This is really brilliant advice, Naveen ji. This is really brilliant. I think, as you mentioned, some amount of fear is good as long as it helps us stay more alert and helps us take on the challenge more confidently. But at the same time, there is a strong need to train the brain to achieve, to kind of get into achiever's mindset, a solutions-oriented mindset, not be dissuaded with small obstacles, small challenges, but be continuously focused and driven towards the larger purpose and the larger goal. So it's quite similar. I mean, I remember somebody was mentioning an example of a competitive sport some time back, that in a competitive sport, if you're in a race and everyone is running and you, for some reason, slip, do you just give up that, oh, I've slipped, or do you stand up and start running again? Pick yourself, start running again, because you never know, right? You have it in you to be able to gather more pace and still be competitive. So, but if you just drop everything at that point in time and think, oh, everyone is 5 steps ahead of me now, so I can't win, then you will never win. So,
like because you mentioned the example of race, and I'm really sorry to interrupt,
right.
but I'll tell you that one story which actually have to an extent inspired me also is of Milkha Singh.
Right.
So we all know his example, that how
Correct.
great an athlete he was, perhaps the greatest that India has ever seen.
Correct.
And we all know that he in that Olympics, that final race, he came fourth and still he was able to beat the world record, and all 4 people beat the world record.
Right.
The only reason he came fourth was because for a momentary microsecond he looked back.
Yes.
And that has always been a very big reminder of me to not be concerned with your competitors that much.
Right.
Because they are perhaps behind you only. They are behind you, but when you look back, perhaps you're giving them a chance to go ahead.
Right.
So that is, something which I have taken from that story, that, okay, you do your, your job and you do it good, and you are perhaps, ahead. But when you look back, so not just physically, but mentally, you are giving them a chance to get ahead and perhaps get in your head. So it is better to, just stay focused and work on yourself and just let everything else be. mostly it is being taken care of by your hard work, like it was being taken care in his case also.
Right.
But that microsecond of distraction can cost you. So that is something perhaps also which will help the listeners.
Excellent.
It has helped me.
Perfect, sir. So let's move on to another interesting question. So the aspirants have done all the preparation. They've given their best, and now arrives the final day of the exam. So what should the student do on the day of the exam or during the exam to be able to deliver his or her best? How should the student make best use of his or her time in the examination hall to be able to score maximum marks?
So I would answer it in a more generic way, in the sense that I'll not answer it pre-centric or main-centric. I'll answer it with that it's an exam day.
Sure.
So when it is an exam day, there are few things which have been said enough, and I think they are absolutely right, that you have to have a good amount of sleep.
Right.
Not too much, not too less, but adequate enough that you don't feel tired. If you sleep too much, you'll feel tired. If you sleep too less, you'll not be able to focus. So you have to have good amount of sleep. Must have light breakfast. You don't have to eat anything heavy which might make you feel uncomfortable or anything like that. Always ensure that you are hydrated and you don't feel, because it is possible that you might feel very nervous in the exam. So it is better to be hydrated, and these things are something which are absolute must do's. You have to ensure it. As far as your exam is concerned, one day before the exam is concerned, don't panic too much. Like I said, one day before the exam is not going to make any difference to your preparation.
Right.
You've already prepared for 10 months, 9 months, 6 months, and whatever amount you have already prepared. So that one day is not going to make it or break it for you. So it does not matter. Even if you don't study anything on the last day, that does not matter. Right. Whatever amount you want to study or you want to revise, do it with a calm mind. Don't think that I have to revise everything today, and if I'm not able to revise everything, I'll not get selected, because that is not how it works. Whatever you revise it nicely and be with a calm mind. So perhaps you can revise topics which you have assessed to be of more importance than others. So you revise those on the last day and leave the rest of the topics, because again, you don't want to get into that race of revising everything and then building that pressure on yourself on the last day. Don't do that. As far as exam day is concerned, don't try to avoid all the silly mistakes of not carrying your admit card, perhaps not carrying some ID card, or not carrying the pen which is required, because you're not supposed to fill OMR with a gel pen. So ensure that you don't do these mistakes, because they will unnecessarily increase your anxiety levels. Right. Because it's a very you have already put in so much hard work, 10 months, 9 months of your life, and some small issue, it will create a huge anxiety that, okay, I have prepared so much and this one issue might take this chance away from me. Don't do that. So ensure that all you've read the instructions carefully and you arrive in time. I always ask aspirants to visit the exam center at least once before the exam. The route well, how far it is from the place you are staying at. Right. And thus, you leave accordingly from the place and you reach in time. It is always better to reach early. You can wait 15-20 minutes, no problem, but don't reach at the last moment, because these things have happened where people have reached late and they were not even allowed in the center. And it's just such a huge, heartbreaking thing to happen to anyone. Right. That should not happen to you. So these things, first of all, which are absolute must-dos and technical things, should be taken care of. As far as your exam day is concerned, when you write an exam, again, few things which are very basic, but which a lot of people don't do. You don't need to go ahead and, I perhaps never ask people to, just if you read a question and you feel that you don't know, and you get stuck on that and you want to solve it first, and you take it on your ego, how I don't know this answer, and you're just, just writing whatever comes to your mind. You'll waste time, you'll waste energy, and you'll lose a lot of confidence because of that one question. And that one question perhaps is that one question which no one knows. Because you have these questions in UPSC papers, which absolutely no one knows. They are just there to stump you, in the sense that, okay, no one knows. It's a fact-based question. Now, no one knows it.
Right.
So anyone who anyway get it correct will only be by a fluke. So you can just skip it and go ahead to other questions and solve those questions which you are absolutely confident about, and solve them well, and ensure that you don't make a silly mistake there.
Right.
Because those are the questions which are going to get you selected. So these things of, these basic things, a lot of us, don't do. Like I made a huge mistake in my pre, which was that I left the OMR to be filled in the end. I solved the paper and then I decided that okay, I will fill the OMR at the end of the paper. But
Oh,
I somehow missed time, in the sense that while as soon as my paper got over, I was
right.
finished because although I finished paper very early, I went back and solved. Okay, if there are 3, 4 more questions, I can solve. Okay, if there are 1 or 2 more questions, I can solve. So I utilized the entire time in that exercise of solving the paper. And when the time for OMR filling came, the bell rang
Oh my God.
and I had not even filled a single answer. And when the
Oh,
bell rang, I started filling it, and I had attempted 97 questions. So I had to now fill 97 bubbles out of 100, and the bell just rang, and I'm filling it, and I know in my mind that if I make one mistake, if I fill one wrong, I know that all the rest of them from after that will be wrong, because that's
oh,
how the serial
correct.
is
Sequentially, yeah.
sequentially. So I'll miss it, and then I was living in extreme anxiety till the results came, because didn't know that if I filled them correctly, because I didn't even get a chance to look at it again. So
Right,
I just filled it, and he was standing in there, the invigilator, and he was asking, "Please give it," and he was also shouting and all things. And I don't blame him because that's his duty, but
right.
it was my mistake. So this is also that you have to avoid. Fill the answers as you solve them. So that is these things. If you avoid these things, the rest of the things will be taken care by your preparation. You've studied well for 8, 10 months. Your preparation is good. Don't make these silly mistakes and don't give these things a chance to ruin your day. Then your preparation will take care. So these are my some advices and some points for the aspects.
This is really wonderful, Naveen ji. And your personal example, that you have shared, I think it should open many eyes that why one has to be very alert, on the day of the exam. And these practical tips that you gave, I think, will come in very handy. And you're absolutely right. These are applicable for any kind of exam. So going to the center before to build a sense of familiarity, to understand the route, be better planned in terms of what equipment or tools do you need to take to the exam, pens, pencils, sharpeners, whatever, right? So very, very important, so that nothing goes unplanned and triggers any panic
Yes.
kind of a response. So excellent. I'm sure this is going to be very, very useful. Any thoughts on what should a aspirant do immediately after the exam? So once the exam is over, you come out of the center, you go to your home. So what should they do? Should they do some kind of a re-evaluation in their mind, or try and see how did the exam go? Try and uh, try and assess what kind of a marks, what kind of marks can they expect? Should they do all
So,
of this?
so
Should we review?
actually,
Yeah.
again, a very good question, and something which is very much a human trait in nature, that how I can advise people a number of things, but right after an exam, the first thing that comes to your mind is to discuss the paper
Right.
with either fellow aspirants or your friends who are giving the exam or something like that. But there is one thing which my parents have always done. I stayed at home when I gave the exam. Then my father used to actually my both my father and mother used to take me to the center
Okay.
for mains also, so and for pre also. So right after the exam, the first thing that they used to do was to take me to a nice lunch or a nice something like that. So they will not allow me to discuss the paper or talk with anyone about the paper right after the exam, because they also know that in everyone knows that in the end, however good you are academically, you are humans, and you
Right.
might have done something which didn't go as per your plan. Then the paper might have gone bad or something might have happened. So rather than to and in mains it's even more important, because it's there are many papers. So even if you don't do well, say in GS paper 1, you don't want that to hamper rest of your papers.
Right.
So that way my parents were like, okay, अभी paper 1 दे दिया है, ठीक है, जैसा हुआ है, leave it, whatever it has happened, let's go and have something nice. You eat something, and I knew that by the time I will get back, I will already be in the mode of giving the next paper rather than reflecting on that paper.
Right.
So if you can do it, great. If you cannot do it, you still feel the compulsion of discussing the paper with your friends and all those things. I would suggest that rather than discussing the paper and all what has happened, you can perhaps discuss the next paper with your friends. You can call them up and talk about next paper, or how you're feeling in general. How you perhaps felt in the paper, not how your exam went. Because then you start comparing, and then your friend might say that okay, I was able to solve all the questions, and then you say okay, I was able to only solve 18 and I left 2. And even then, even though perhaps your 18 were better than his 20, you will, have that thing in your mind and it'll get stuck and it'll ruin your rest of the papers.
Right.
So as far as possible, avoid, discussing papers and everything till the exam is over in its entirety for mains. For pre, obviously, again, I would suggest not to discuss paper after CSAT, GS paper 1. GS paper 1 happens and then you get a break and you give CSAT. So don't discuss your, paper before your CSAT paper. You can do all these exercises after both the papers are over and you're home. You can do it then. That's okay. But in between the papers, because you still have to give one paper and you don't want any negativity, extra stress in that paper to go in with you. Avoid that. And after the second paper also, I would suggest to not do it on the same day. Take that day off, enjoy it with your family, have some fun. Next day, it is natural that you will eventually, want to know how you did in the paper. That thing will come. But avoid it as much as you can till as much time you can, and try to take a break for yourself, because you don't want to, if you have done well, everything goes well, it'll be well next day also. Okay. And if some things have gone bad, why do you want that negativity one day before? Then if you can actually have it the next day. So it's okay to, evaluate on the second day and then, decide what is happening.
Right. Yeah, and in a exam which is like a marathon, spread over a long period, there's no point in looking back after,
Yes.
overcoming an obstacle, like the
Absolutely.
Milkha Singh story that you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So keep looking ahead till the final hurdle is crossed. And then one can obviously, review the entire thing in totality and, reassess everything. Excellent advice. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot. A couple of quick questions. We'll try and wrap these up early. Sometimes what happens is that things don't go the way an aspirant wants them to. So in such a situation, how can an aspirant learn from his or her mistake and can take the corrective measures?
So when things don't go according to your plan, and when things perhaps are not as you expected, again, like I said earlier, I would say it again. You have to understand and recognize what has happened. I mean, and like I said, a lot of the times, most of the time, we are able to recognize. Like I remember in my first attempt, even though I got selected, I did not get the rank that I desired and the service that I desired. So, but till the results came out, I was very hopeful. I was hopeful in the sense that I have done tremendously well and everything has gone well and I will get a good rank and everything will be fine. But when the results came out, it did not happen. And at that point of time, I had already started evaluating my papers and recalling and trying to understand where I could have missed. And then the marks came out, and and they were exactly the way I was expected in them to be, in the sense that I knew by then that okay, these were the mistakes which I have made.
Right.
Now, at that point of time, I could have blamed fate and I could have blamed that okay, my luck was bad and something like that. I could have done it because I knew for a fact that not everyone who got a better rank was better than me.
Right.
Or not everyone who didn't get selected was worse off.
Right.
So it works both ways.
Right.
So you can consider yourself lucky where you are, and you can just accept it and move forward and work on your mistakes and try to make most of the situation at hand. So I saw the paper saw the marks, and I knew okay, this paper perhaps where I am lacking. This is one paper which I have gotten the least amount of marks. I am lacking in this paper. Let me work on this first. I'll work on this first in my second attempt. I'll make it my strength and try to do as much as possible in this paper, and then the rest of the things, as I can see, are anyway fine enough. I'll ensure that I maintain that standard in them, if not improve it, and let's see. And I did that, and that paper was actually my highest scoring paper in my second attempt, and I did extremely well in that paper. But that was not by chance. I worked for it. I recognized my flaw and I worked for it, and I gave it my best, and I saw the results also. So most of the times, this is how things actually can be managed. So if something is not going according to your plan, just see which part of that plan is not working. If your timetable is too ambitious, if you perhaps are, demanding too much from yourself, be rational. You are human beings, you're not robots. So you're not able to finish the syllabus in 3 months. No one can do it. So you have to, then realign your this. And if something is perhaps distracting you, you recognize what the distraction is, try to eliminate or maybe limit that distraction. So many of the times, like I talk to a lot of aspirants on my social media, and a lot of aspirants message me and ask. So if you talk to them, they themselves will tell you the problem. And if you talk more, they'll tell you the solutions also. So they know the problems and they know the solutions. It's just that perhaps they want someone of authority to reaffirm the solution for them, and then they will work on it. And I completely understand that's how our mind works. So it's okay, but most of the times we are aware of our problems and issues, and we can work on it. It's not a huge problem. So timetable mein problem hai, so you see which part of the timetable has a problem. If missing some, but for example, if you're performing particularly poorly in one subject regularly, then obviously you don't know that subject that well. You can continue telling yourself that, okay, the paper is tough, but it's not. If you are doing well in all other subjects, and if you're not doing well in one subject, then the paper is not tough for that one subject. It's just that perhaps you don't understand the concepts that well of that subject. Read it again, right, and try to see where you are making some mistakes. You will be able to do better. Like I remember in my time, I was not doing well for a long period of time of 2 months in environment.
Okay.
And environment and geography. And the reason was that I have never liked geography. So I was always ignorant about it, that I have read it, okay. But then I never, read it with that amount of enthusiasm or, like that. Perhaps I'll read history or, polity or society or something like that. So I used to read it. But then when I started getting marks and I started seeing that, okay, only this one subject is, but in my mind, I've read it, but I have not read it the way it is supposed to be read.
Right.
So I was able to accept this fact that, okay, you have ignored this subject for a long time now. Better you read it or it will cost you the exam. So I worked on it, and I worked specifically on geography and environment to that extent that I did it very well. And I don't think I got even a single answer wrong of geography in my pre that year. So that way, it is up to you. If you recognize your mistake and your flaws and you work on it, you can, take control of the situation. So that's how it is.
I think very important for one to do a thorough introspection.
Absolutely.
And
regularly.
And be honest to himself or herself,
Yes.
As to where they stand,
Yes.
to be able to course correct.
Yes.
Otherwise, like I think Einstein said that if you continue to do the same things, it's stupid to expect a different result.
Different results, yes.
So unless the input changes, the output won't. So very interesting. Great. So with that, we come to our final question, Naveenji, which is, having, given a lot of insights to the aspirant, a lot of advice to the aspirants as to what they should do, how they should plan, do's and don'ts, preparing well for it's kind of a marathon kind of an exam. So preparing well for it, preparing hard for it. But one final thing that I wanted to ask was, is there any advice that you may want to give to their aspirants' family and friends? Because so there is one aspirant who's trying hard to prepare and succeed in a highly competitive exam. What advice would you give to this aspirant's family and friends?
So again, a very important question. And in my family, I have been an aspirant, and now my sister is also preparing, my younger sister. And so I have seen this very closely. And in my family, luckily we have all been very good academically, in the sense that we have had a history of good academic record. So that expectation comes naturally from parents' side and from that side. So and even though my parents are extremely supportive and they have done whatever one could ask for, at times they would say things which did not impact me, but I can see that it impacts my sister. So, and I will assume that it will impact, and not in a negative way, but then it builds pressure. Right. Like the statements like, you're doing very well, तुम्हारा तो हो ही जाएगा. तुम्हारा क्यों? Even though it is a very positive statement, correct, it will impact the aspirant in a way that, okay, now they have to ensure that they get selected because their parents are expecting a selection. Right. So even though, and that too, this again does not stem from or come from any negative, point of view. They are actually being supportive and they're being nice to their kid. But the way you say things and the way you convey your emotions can have an impact on someone's mind. So even if your kid or your what is doing very well and doing whatever is supposed to be done in the preparation, ensure that you don't build any undue pressure on them. Let them do it and be there for them, in the sense that ask how they are doing rather than how their preparation is. More often ask how they are doing, if they are feeling well, if there is some pressure on them. if these things, because that's where family is most needed. Because for preparation and everything, they already have teachers, they have fellow aspirants, they have friends. And anyway, they're not, if even if they tell you about the preparation, perhaps you will not understand it that much because you're not from that background. So most of the cases that will happen. So it is always better to, rather ask them how they're doing. If their health is fine, if they need something, if they are under some pressure, if there is some stress, and be there for them in that way, in that capacity. Rest of the things, I think they can handle on their own. Preparation may anyway, there is only to an extent the parents can do and help, until unless they come from the same background, and so they cannot help. So these things are important for friends and families, and it works both ways.
Right.
Aspirants also, I would, like I said already, it is very important to be with your family as much as possible. In the sense, like for example, if you're staying at home and preparing, I would suggest you to have all your meals with your family. Don't just have a meal on your study table. Don't do that.
Right.
I'll just let your mother bring your food to your study table. You'll eat it there, and then she'll take away everything, and you're not even leaving your room. Don't do that. Just move out and have the meal with your family. Talk about other things. Take a break, and that break is actually, it'll serve multiple purposes. It'll also, not disconnect you from your family, because 1 year is a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
Like if you're disconnected with your family for 1 year, you will start actually feeling, lonely. You will not even realize where you are, and you will not feel connected to, what is going on around you. You will not know what is happening. A lot might have, because anyway, when you are preparing, Indian families in particular will try to not put pressure on you by not telling you any problems or
Right.
any issues.
Correct.
They'll try to, safeguard you in that way. कि यार इसको मत बताओ because he is preparing, and don't let any undue pressure go on him. But then that is not how it's supposed to be. Just because you are preparing, that does not wash you away from your responsibility towards your parents.
Right.
Or you have to be there with them and for them even while you're preparing. You have to deal with it, and you'll have to be there with them and be strong and support them if needed. If there is some crisis or emergency, you just cannot wash away your hands and say that I'm preparing, I don't know, you deal with it. That's not how life works. This is just an exam. It's just one thing, and there are so many other things also. So you have to, because it's such a complicated thing that you ignore all of these things now. Later on, you will regret it. Even after your selection, you will regret it. Okay, I know these people who have gotten selected, but then they feel that for that 3-4 years when they were preparing, they were completely disconnected with their friends and families and everything. And now that disconnect has still, remained there.
Continued, yeah.
So that should not happen with you. So that, and it works both ways. For parents also, I would suggest that undue pressure नहीं बनाने के चक्कर में, if you don't tell them everything or anything which is important and which perhaps he or she can help you with. Sometimes you are the only child. Sometimes you are the elder child. Who else will they tell?
Yeah.
Not you. So you have, and you are not a kid. If you're preparing for civil services, you are a graduate, you are 22, 23, so you are an adult. You should be there with your family in these times. So these things, maintaining a healthy social life from both the sides will actually help preparation.
Very useful, Naveenji. I think you are absolutely right. The family should try and create a encouraging, a favorable, a conducive environment for the aspirant. At the same time, the aspirant should also ensure that he is a part of the family. He's not isolated, completely. He understands what's going on in the family, and even though the family will try its best to not distract him, but his involvement is essential. So he's a part. He's not getting divorced from the family for that period when he's preparing for the exam. So a fine balance has to be brought in there. So excellent. I have just I think this was supposed to be the last question, but I'll be doing injustice to my role as a publisher if I were to not ask you for about your latest book, Social Justice, right? So a quick question, what inspired you to do this book, and what's so unique about it? Would you like to share it with the viewers? Yeah.
So thank you, Vikesh. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to write this book, and also to the team, specifically Shakil ji, who has always been in touch with me throughout the process, and now I've been in touch with Ayushi after the book has been done, and yourself have been tremendously supportive. So I would like to thank you guys firstly. Secondly, the reason why I wanted to write a book on social justice. So most of the people who know me through any channel, be it social media or my circle or anyone, they know that this is one of those topics which is very dear to me because I write on this otherwise also.
Right.
I have a blog. I write on, like, even on my Instagram. I will mostly be writing on social issues and politics or something like, even topics which most of the officers will perhaps feel a bit that they should not get into. But I feel that that's part of my duty and part of my service, that I have to speak on these issues.
Right.
So I try to be vocal as much as possible, as much as service rules allow me to be. And a book is one of those avenues which I feel I don't see any better way for me to put forth my view on our topics as diverse as social justice and as important as social justice. That is the first reason. Second reason is very exam centric and very important, and that is that when I was preparing, and I still know for a fact that there isn't a single source for social justice on which an aspirant can rely on and think that, okay, I will just read this and social justice will be done.
Right.
Because for most of the topics, you will still have to Google and you will still have to be dependent on internet, and you will have to compile sources and notes from various places, and then still there is a chance that you might miss something. So that was the second reason, that there is absolute necessity and necessary missing book from the UPSC market, and as far as requirements of aspirants is concerned. So that was the second reason, that I felt that, okay, if I can come up with a book which actually meets a need, and that too, this topic is one of those topics which will be asked every year, which is asked every year, and it is not just about GS. If you read the book, it will help you in essay also, it will help you in ethics paper also, it will help you in most of the optional subjects which are not technical. It will help you in political science, it will help you in sociology, it will help you in history, it will help you in anthropology, and it will also end up helping you in interview. So I also felt that, okay, this book is actually can be written in a way that it can actually be enjoyed while reading, because I have written it in a way that it is not about preparing for the exam only. You can obviously prepare for the exam, and that is the main purpose, but you can read it otherwise also. If you have already read social justice from some other source or some other topic, this book will definitely not be a waste. If you read it, you will end up adding something to your already to your knowledge levels already. So that, in that way, I thought that, okay, I have a certain amount of credibility, that, okay, that I have written on this topic for some time. I do read a lot of these books, and I would say that my audience, in the sense that because I write and I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, so the people who know me, aspirants who follow me, they know that, okay, if this guy is talking about social justice, he knows what he's talking about. So I have that much amount of credibility to write on it. So I wanted to write it for a long time, and when this opportunity came, I said, okay, this is great. It absolutely fits into my that thing, my priorities right now. So I decided to write it, and it has come out very nice, because I saw the final copy, and I don't have it right now with me, but I saw it, and I was so happy with the final product, that I absolutely have great hopes, in the sense that, like I said, there is this missing link in the syllabus, and most of the aspirants don't know from, and it covers everything in social justice. I don't think that there is even because I have not left even the smallest of topic which was to be covered in social justice. You will find everything. I can say it with some responsibility that if you read this book, you don't need to read anything else for social justice.
Excellent. Thank you, Naveenji. This has been a really wonderful conversation with you. It's kind of very invigorating as well. I'm sure when the viewers and listeners see this and hear this, they are going to be highly motivated. So thanks a ton for your time today. We'll close the part 1 now, and we'll move on to part 2 a bit later.